What's a toxic behavior disguised as a virtue? Mom says several people on her Facebook are angry that they were told their services weren't needed when they signed up to town's volunteer services to help folk during the crisis. We had an amazing number of people come forward. They're mad because they want to help and do their bit. And honestly, she realized so many of them are the ones who do charity drives and stuff like that, just to show off how much of a #good person they are, and to have others praise them for being a #good person. The ones we know who are helping are getting on and doing it. Odd picture or post, but certainly not what these people would be doing. This weirdly applies to the service industry as well. People will literally throw tips at a barista to prove that they're a #good person after just belittling us. They get angry when we say at our store we can't accept tips, because how are they supposed to get that good person fix now? It's so weird and gross. The opposite of this also exists. There are people who crap on others for genuinely just trying to do the right thing and claim that they just do it to seem like a good person. Especially on the internet, the terms SJW, white knight, or simp have lost all meaning due to this. Supporting a person to a fault. In other words, being an enabler. Especially when they call it loyalty. People will defend the most effed up crap from their friends and be like, "I'm loyal." Like, no, call out your friends for being crap when they are. When people get involved in and regulate other people's relationships, they try to act like they're helping, but they always make it worse. Grand romantic gestures. I teach high school, and it's crazy how many times you see a kid basically bully their crush into being with them. They make this huge public display, and the kid is too shy to say no in front of everyone. It's embarrassing and distressing for that poor kid. I had a guy surprise me with a date. He lied and said our friends would be there. It was just him, me, and a horror movie. He brought me a necklace and chocolates. If we'd actually been dating, it might have been a nice romantic gesture. We weren't. We were barely friends. Hollywood can definitely warp the ideas of boundaries and consent. I can't see that working in this day and age. Or maybe it never worked in the first place, I'm not sure. I do know that if anyone tried it on me, I would be mortified, he says, beating off hordes of imaginary admirers with a stick. Overstudying, overburdening, and excessive academic anxiety and self-doubt does not make for a dedicated pupil, but an unbalanced and miserable human being instead. This is so common in Asia, the whole competitive environment of those studying more and getting better grades. Was watching a YouTuber earlier talk about how journaling during quarantine has helped him get through some old traumas, and he said one of the issues that it brought up was this. It was really jarring for me to hear that he's basically got PTSD from exam taking and Asian study culture. If the YouTuber didn't mention, or just if you haven't heard, I'd urge you to look up just how important tests in Asian countries can be. Anything from bribing police to ignore cheating, to parents climbing buildings to help their kids cheat. It's honestly unbelievable, and I can 100% imagine that stress seriously affecting someone. People saying that they did stuff that directly affects us without our permission for looking after your best interests. I have a similar neighbor. His thing is speed limits. He stands at the edge of his driveway shouting at cars that he thinks are going too fast. He makes his own unofficial speed limit signs, and he complains to each neighbor about how all the other neighbors ignore him. My neighbor really just needs a cause to fill his time. I wish he'd take up needlepoint or model ships. Self-sacrifice. Sometimes, sacrificing some of your time and energy is important. But you've got to remember that if someone or something is important to you, it doesn't mean you should cut pieces off yourself or burn yourself out for it. It goes double for if you're caring for someone. If that something or someone is that important to you, you need to make sure that the support you're giving remains consistent and sustainable and doesn't take you out. We often forget that in many cases, when you're caring for someone, that person's well-being is also tied to your well-being. And if your well-being suffers, that person you're caring for will suffer as well. And if they're worth caring for, they'll notice that you're suffering, and it won't be great for them either. The workaholic. It's fine to work hard at something you love, but not at the expense of everything else. Especially if you use it to put down everyone else who knows how to set boundaries. Teacher culture is like this so much. I know we lack a lot of supplies, but I've got 3 kids. I don't have $500 to spend at Target at the beginning of the year, and 3 days to come in and decorate my room to the perfect school colors. I leave at the end of the contract time, and I work from home after the kids go to bed. But since the others don't see me stay at school until 7 or 8, apparently I'm not working. If you don't sponsor clubs for nothing and work yourself to the bone, you're not a good teacher, apparently. My test scores are phenomenal, but I get so much crap for not volunteering to chaperone a dance. Persistence in relationships. It's always sold in rom-coms and in relationships, but usually your persistence is a complete lack of respect for other people's boundaries or holding on to things that aren't working out. When you tell people how you're feeling, to vent, or when they ask how you're doing in general, and then they one-up you to make you feel like you don't get to feel tired or sad or stressed because they are clearly having a harder time of it than you are. I was tired from school and work one day, and I told my old roommate that I was feeling a little tired. And he hits me with, "Oh, you're tired? I only had 5 hours of sleep and I had to wake up early this morning because I had PT." He's in the Reserve Officers Training Corps. People that do good deeds so that they can brag about it or use it to their own advantage. "Look at me, I'm such a good person. I do all these nice things. Not because I wanted to be a good person or anything. Nope, just so I could tell everyone about all the good things I do. Repeatedly. Like all the time. Because I'm a good person, remember? Hey, by the way, could you do me a favor?" Telling kids that they're so different than anyone else while implying that they're somehow better. The actual healthy thing to do is just stress that everyone is unique and the kids' natural gifts make them who they are, just like other kids' gifts make them unique. Working for exposure. This one gets me because companies use it as an excuse to not pay someone or not pay them the amount they deserve. They claim exposure is your payment, but last I checked, exposure doesn't pay the bills. The entire "I have a strong personality" kind of people, and then when they follow that up with "people either love me or hate me," you know that it's heavily weighted to the hate side. My boss excuses her really crappy and just plain mean behavior as a strong personality. Nope, you're just a butthole. Yeah, I've never met a person like this where it wasn't code for "I'm heavily unpleasant to be around." Take your strong personality and use that strength to hurl yourself to a different locale, please. The rise and grind mentality, saying that if you're not working towards something, you're wasting your time. It's important to take time to relax or pursue a passion without monetary gain, but society as a whole has deemed this as wasting your time. My boss tells me he only reads inspirational self-help books to get better at sales, and that's what he wants me to read. I just tell him that the books I like are fantasy, sci-fi, and historical. I'm really not interested in some rich guy telling me how to do relationship marketing a chapter in and this author is just blabbling about his boating trip with his friend. For me, I don't see it as me doing certain activities that are just wasting time or would be considered pointless. Yeah, I'm not working towards making more money or improving my reputation or whatever's considered monetary gain, but you know what this activity that brings me enjoyment does work towards? My happiness and well-being. You know what you can't do when you're not mentally all in order and it's hard for you to function as a healthy human? Make monetary gains. Am I saying be lazy and always do what you want to do and always try to do something fun? No. But life isn't all about money. I don't care how much fricking money I make if I'm miserable. Family comes first. I grew up thinking that I had a very close extended family until I realized how crappy and miserable most of them were. I've cut them out and feel so much better about it. That kind of hustle culture where successful people give motivational speeches, or more often Instagram captions, where they say stuff like, "If you're not succeeding, you're not working hard enough," or "We all have the same 24 hours. We don't all have the same 24 hours. If you have kids, subtract a couple of hours. If you have kids without a live-in nanny, subtract a whole bunch of them. If you have to work minimum wage jobs to make rent, subtract hours. If you don't have help to cook or clean or grocery shop, then subtract more hours." That's part of why Kylie Jenner's whole self-made millionaire thing bugs me. Even if she came up with her own ideas and did her portion of the work, she never had to worry about financial support to start her brand, or childcare while she was working, or who was going to cook meals for her and her kid or clean her house. Her lip fillers alone, which are a huge portion of her brand, can cost up to $2,000 a pop. You're not self-made if you couldn't have done it without your parents' money. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger for part of this reason. When speaking at a graduation ceremony, he said something to the effect of the following: "I always tell people that you can call me anything you want. You can call me Arnold, you can call me Schwarzenegger, you can call me the Austrian Oak, you can call me Schwarzi, you can call me Arnie, but don't ever call me a self-made man. This is so important for you to understand. I didn't make it that far on my own. I mean, to accept the credit or that mantle would discount every single person that has helped me get here today, that gave me advice, that made an effort, that gave me time, that lifted me when I fell. It gives the wrong impressions that we can do it alone. None of us can. The whole concept of self-made man or woman is a myth. Almost no one is self-made. It's nice to be inspired and think that you can be the next big thing, but having help does go a long way. It's why people are tired of the millionaire celebrities who talk about how you just need to lace up your boots and put your time in. Meanwhile, the Paltrows of the world have nannies and chefs and personal trainers, or the Trumps of the world get a small loan of $1 million. Most common, lower or middle class people will consider it a windfall to find a sitter for an hour or two every now and then, or come into an extra $50 to make it to the next paycheck. It's hard for your average person, where you rely on each other, crash at a friend's house, ask for a quick ride somewhere, maybe $20 here and there to make it through, or ask a relative to watch the kids for an hour or two before you can make it home from work. Even then, it's not always enough. The hustle and self-made culture can be an inspiration from the right person. But when the self-made persons start crapping on people who can't make it or haven't been as lucky, it flips really quick. Humility is what's important, knowing that even if you've managed to make it with hard work and sacrifice, someone can do just as much, if not more, and still fall short. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Corporate passive-aggressive behavior. Yes, you're saying all the right things and everything checks out if read back on a transcript, but you and I both know you've simply found a way to abuse the rules for your own gain. My last boss was like this. She'd even brag about the ways she got away with it in the past. She loved to manipulate and belittle people, and this was her favorite way of doing it. What's worse is so many people could see through it, but technically she didn't do anything wrong, so she had no consequences. Toxic positivity. Basically, people who try to find the good in everything. There's a lot to be said for having a positive outlook, but it quickly becomes toxic when you start lessening the impact of people who are awful to the ones you love. For example, I'm sure your parents still loved you in their own way. Or when you trivialize people's sadness. So you got fired. It just means you need to pursue a new opportunity. Sometimes, the appropriate answer to a situation is to just acknowledge that things suck. Sometimes, other people need to vent. They don't want a solution, they don't want you to tell them it will be alright, they just want to release the tension in their chest by venting to you, and to hear you say, yeah, that is bullcrap. And a lot of the time, whoever they choose to vent to is someone they trust and are comfortable with. I usually feel a little flattered when my friends vent to me. And if there's something you think you can help them with, wait until after they vented. Let them get it out, let it calm down, and then make the suggestion. It will always go so much better. The discovery of toxic positivity has, no joke, been a real revelation to the narrator's life in recent years. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your friend is to acknowledge that things suck and ask them questions, like what they might do next. Offer your opinion on their options if they ask, and just be there and respect their feelings. People who say, "This is just the way I am. If you can't handle that, oh well." Like, no, you're wrong. I understand to an extent that if people don't like you for being yourself, they can go F themselves, but if you're a person who seriously doesn't know how to speak to people or are just rude in general and claim, "That's just how I am," you're wrong. People need to know that it's not okay to be rude or obnoxious, and that you should be able to know the difference of being yourself and just being a jerk. Steve Jobs was Exhibit A for this. He was known for treating people like crap, and not just his employees at Apple. Waiters, hotel staff, whoever. And it wasn't because he didn't have it in him to be kind and generous, because he did turn that on when it suited him. He just chose not to care that his cruelty hurt people. Always being busy and constantly working hard. I have family members that call me lazy because I've created a life that doesn't revolve around constant grinding. Constantly being busy, getting up at the crack of dawn, always complaining about being tired, regularly talking about how there's just not enough time to do things they enjoy. All as if it's some badge of honor. Yes, this. When people talk to me about all the crap they have going on, and I'm sitting here with no girlfriend because I don't want the commitment, and extra person wrapped into my schedule, no house and no plans to buy one because I'm not spending the next 30 years fixing things. I don't like the word project. I hate having projects and chores. I've deliberately taken paths and choices so that I can relax as much as possible. I feel like some people look down on me for it, but F them. Being the supportive friend or significant other who'll never say no, even if it's a really bad idea. "Kindly let me help you, or you'll drown," said the monkey, safely putting the fish up in a tree. Alan Watts. People who record themselves doing something nice for someone in need. I'm all for helping people, but the minute you bring your own camera crew, it loses all meaning. Yeah, I know someone like this. She's kind of a guru of kindness in some circles, but it's fake. One particularly troubling example was something she wrote about how she was so there for a dying friend. She included many photos of herself by this guy's bedside while he was in a coma, despite her totally ignoring him while he was sick and not in a coma, and wrote so much about how painful but conducive to growth this whole experience was. In reality, she's a selfish, awful person who wouldn't bend down to save a puppy drowning in a puddle without a camera around. I once saw her yell at someone for being helpful to a stranger without any fanfare. "You have a Jesus complex. You're acting like being kind is nothing, like it's not a sacrifice." Probably because it tees her off every time someone is actually the way she pretends to be. Being offended on behalf of another person without knowing or wanting to know their opinion. People that say they're always 100% honest and aren't afraid to speak their mind. It's definitely useful when needed, but normally just makes a person seem insufferable and rude. Brutally honest people care more about the brutal than the honesty. Absolutely. If you're going to be honest, at least have some tact. The attitude of the person saying honest stuff can go an awfully long way depending on whether they're just being rude or they're also offering solutions too with their honest advice. Unwavering loyalty. No, sometimes people don't deserve it and you shouldn't be ashamed to let them go. Constantly being so quick to call people toxic just because you had a fight or disagreement and you don't like it. Obviously, if someone is a mental or physical bully, then sure, I've got a few people out of my life too. But the culture we've created has people cutting each other off over everything. No one learns loyalty, conflict resolution, and no one is allowed to grow. Also, too many people have become too proud to acknowledge their wrongs and say sorry when they need to. Everyone needs to relearn how to 1. Resolve conflict in a mature and rational way, and 2. Forgive each other, and 3. Apologize for your own actions. People that are always worried for you, but they are just expecting the moment you make a mistake or be under a bad situation so they can feel relieved their lives are a little better than yours. Like most things in life, an Oscar Wilde quote is relevant. Children begin by loving their parents. As they grow older, they judge them. Sometimes they forgive them. Helicopter parenting. That crap scars you, makes you unable to function like a normal adult, and struggle to make your own decisions when it comes to responsibility. Funny you should mention that. I believe we've had at least 2 videos specifically on helicopter parenting on the channel. Self-promotion aside, it sounds more horribly traumatic than the comical metaphor name would suggest. Sweeping issues under the rug for the sake of peace. In other words, being the bigger person. Over-the-top kindness often masks agenda. Charisma goes a long way toward hiding something darker. Constant self-diminishing and downplaying your abilities as humility. Just accept and recognize that you're pretty skilled and have a lot of experience in something, instead of saying that it's easy, that anyone could do the same, and the list goes on. My stepmom was a doctor, and one thing she told me that they drill into you in medical school is how to take a compliment. Because if a family thanks you for saving a loved one's life and you respond with, "Oh shucks, 'tweren't nothing," that's actually an incredibly insulting thing to say to them. The polite thing to do is graciously accept the compliment. Aggressive self-care. Sometimes people use this as a hard stop to get out of things that they don't want to do, because you can't argue with someone saying they need self-care. But there's a line between doing what you need to do in order to bolster emotional and mental health, and being lazy or taking advantage of people who want to support self-care more. Overprotectiveness. Not the general caring and protecting of someone, but a lot of people seem to think it's so adorable when someone is super overprotective over someone else. I'm not weak. I can do things by myself just fine, thanks. Ensuring success. Don't tell your kids that they'll do great things. Don't say that you'll kill it. Give people reasonable expectations and realize that they're normal. Giving and being selfless can sometimes extend to being a doormat. Some people specifically put themselves in positions to be used in order to guilt or manipulate or feel worthy and needed. Always saying what's on your mind. People who claim to have no filter are generally just rude. It's much more commendable to know when to shut the frick up. The super-ultra laid-back mentality. Not everything is okay. Not everything is a joke or is cool. It's good to have boundaries and to take things seriously. When I'm around groups of people that are overtly positive, like a workout group or something, I get crazy annoyed. Not that I'm a proponent of negativity, but I am a proponent of moderation and balance. Without negativity in a strictly positive situation, there's no balance or check. And when it's amplified by a large group of people, it quickly becomes loud and obnoxious to me. It'd be the same case if you were around a group of people that were overtly negative. The lack of balance makes me so uncomfortable. Being too quick to leap on people for perceived toxicity. One example of this is gossip. People love to say that they hate gossip, but in reality it's part of what makes us human. Gossip that is untruthful is harmful, but the rest isn't that bad. For example, if someone tells you that a person they had to work with was lazy and didn't do their part, they're venting, and it saves you from having to go through it yourself. Not being honest with people solely to make them feel good. It's kinda like 50-50 with this one. If they need the boost, then maybe, but overall it's generally a bad move. Putting people in their place. I've only ever seen insufferable drama queens and bullies use this term when referring to themselves. Respecting your elders. Respect is earned, not given. This doesn't mean that you can't show basic human decency, of course. However, I will not respect someone just because they're older than me, no matter what kind of person they are or how they treat me or make me feel. Sorry, not sorry. I don't really know how to say this eloquently. I think there's this pervasive belief in American society that speaking up when you don't like something or causing conflict is always bad or not cool. Confrontation is uncomfortable for everyone involved, but often is extremely necessary for us or society to change for the better. It seems like we always try to appease the situation we're in, and often it causes undue suffering. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.